I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. My wife Emily and I had been together for 10 years. We met in college, got married not long after, and for most of that time I thought things were pretty solid. Sure, we had our disagreements, who does? But I always believed we were in it for the long haul. Then came the last few months and I started noticing little things that didn't add up. A text here, a strange call there. Nothing obvious at first, but enough to make me second-guess her sometimes. It all started to feel different after the funeral. My dad passed away suddenly and I was devastated. I thought that might bring us closer, that we'd lean on each other through the grief. Instead, Emily was weird. She was cold, distant even. She smiled at me during the funeral, but it never reached her eyes. When I looked at her, she looked right through me, like I was a stranger. She told me she was just tired and that the funeral was exhausting. I wanted to believe her, but deep down, I felt like something was off. In the days that followed, I caught her texting late at night, hiding her phone whenever I came into the room. Her stories about where she'd been during the day kept changing. One day she said she was shopping with her sister, then the next she claimed she was at a yoga class. I noticed her phone kept buzzing with messages I never got to see. She'd quickly lock it or turn it off. That's when I started digging. I know, bad move. But I couldn't shake this gnawing feeling of betrayal. Then one morning I found it. I was lying in bed scrolling through my own phone when I saw a message pop up from a number I didn't recognize. It was short, but what hit me like a punch to the gut was the name. "Can't wait to see you tonight," it said. I looked closer and there was a second message, "Meet me at the usual spot." My stomach twisted. It was from Emily. I was frozen. My mind raced. This wasn't just some innocent flirtation. It was more. I looked at her phone right then, and there were texts between her and my brother, Jason. I saw the pictures she'd sent him, a little too intimate, a little too suggestive. They'd been exchanging messages for weeks, maybe longer. How could she do this to me? During my father's funeral, no less. This was a slap in the face I didn't see coming. I started to tremble, my blood boiling. I knew I couldn't wait to confront her anymore. I needed to see her face to face and get some answers. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I had to be careful. Emily was the type to lie her way out of everything, spin stories like she was auditioning for a role. So I waited until she came home that evening, pretending everything was normal, like I hadn't just found out she was cheating on me with my brother, and probably for some time now. She walked in, all bitchy attitude, rolling her eyes like I was bothering her even though I was just sitting there waiting. "Hey," she said, throwing her bag on the couch. "What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She smirked, crossing her arms. "About what? You've been acting weird lately, like you're mad at me for no reason." I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Her eyes widened, her face instantly losing that smug look she always had. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. "You cheating on me with Jason during my father's funeral? Are you serious right now?" Her smile faded, replaced by a look that was almost amused. "Oh, come on, you're overthinking this." "That's not what it looks like. You're just being paranoid." I shook my head. "Paranoid? You've been texting him, calling him, sending him pictures. You've been lying about where you are, who you're with. This isn't paranoia, Emily. This is betrayal. How long has this been going on?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes again. "Look, I don't owe you an explanation for everything. Jason and it was just sex. It happened once or twice, okay? I didn't think it was a big deal." "You're always so controlling and insecure. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with everything, I wouldn't have felt the need to find someone who actually pays attention to me." That hit me hard. Her words, her attitude, it was like I didn't even matter. She was so dismissive, so hell-bent on making me feel like I was the crazy one. I felt a flood of rage mixed with heartbreak. How could she be so callous? The woman I married, the woman I trusted, was out there sneaking around with my brother, smirking at me while I found out. I wanted to scream, to yell at her until she broke down and admitted everything, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I just looked at her, feeling every ounce of my world collapsing around me. I saw her lie to my face, her bitchy smirk that said she knew she could get away with it. I realized then that I'd been a fool all along, trusting her blindly, believing in a version of her that was just a mask. That's when the full weight of the betrayal hit me. She had smiled at me during my father's funeral, knowing damn well she was lying, cheating, betraying me with my own brother. And she had the nerve to call me paranoid or insecure. I didn't know what to do next. All I knew was that everything I'd believed in, everything I thought was real, was shattered in that moment. I realized I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. Furious at her, at Jason, at myself for not seeing it sooner. I knew my next move had to be cold, calculated, because I wasn't going to be played anymore. I wasn't going to be the fool who gets played by the woman he loved. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at Emily the same way. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, had been sneaking around behind my back during one of the worst moments of my life, my father's funeral, and she smiled at me the entire time. That smile, I swear, was the worst part. It was like she was mocking me, laughing in her head, thinking she'd get away with it, but I wasn't going to let her. Not without a fight. That night, I stayed up late, going over everything. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The betrayal was raw, brutal. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smirk, her messages, the pictures. I knew I had to do something, but what? I was angry, yes, but I also felt shame. How did I not see this? How did I let things get so bad? I kept replaying moments, trying to find the signs I missed. The next morning, I decided I had to do some digging, properly this time. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media accounts. I didn't want to just confront her blindly and look like a fool. I needed proof, and I needed to understand exactly how deep this went. That's when I found out about the plan for that night, her rendezvous with Jason. The messages detailed how she was planning to meet him at some shady bar downtown, and she was excited, saying, "Can't wait to feel you again." I felt sick. It was like I'd been punched in the gut all over again. I also saw something else, more than just texts. There were pictures. Not just the suggestive ones she'd sent him, but photos from her phone that showed her with him, smiling, arms around each other like it was nothing. I couldn't believe my eyes. She had been lying so effortlessly, hiding everything behind her bitchy attitude and false smiles. It was like she was proud of it. I felt my blood boiling, but I also knew I had to keep my cool if I wanted to catch her in her lies. That's when I decided I'd come up with a plan, one that would hit her where it hurts, but also make her see she couldn't get away with this. I started recording her calls and saving her messages. I wanted undeniable proof. Not just for myself, but so I could expose her properly. I knew she was the type to deny everything, spin more lies, so I had to be prepared. I also contacted my brother, Jason, but not in a confrontational way. I wanted to understand what the hell was going on from his side, get a sense of how deep this thing went between them. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that Emily was not just some girl having a fling. She was manipulative, bitchy, and completely shameless about her cheating. She kept lying, spinning stories about just sex. It doesn't mean anything, or that I was being paranoid, but I saw through all her bullshit. The fact that she was planning to cheat on me during my father's funeral, that was the real punch in the stomach. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a slap in the face to everything I believed in, to my family, to the vows we made. I felt humiliated, angry, and hurt all at once. I kept asking myself how I didn't see the signs earlier, how I let her get away with this for so long. I was furious at myself for trusting her blindly, for thinking she loved me. But I also knew that I couldn't just sit around and be a fool anymore. I had to do something, and whatever I decided, it had to be final. I was done being played. I was done being the fool. By the time I had all the evidence I needed, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't want to blow up everything in a rage. I wanted to make her see that I was serious, that I had her dead to rights, and that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. My plan was simple but effective. I recorded her, saved all the messages, and made copies of the pictures. I wanted to hit her with everything at once, show her I knew the truth and that I was prepared to walk away if that's what it took. One afternoon, I waited until she was supposed to be out meeting Jason again. I set up my phone to record her, and I also made sure I had the evidence stored securely. When she came home, I was calm. That was the hardest part, keeping my composure, acting like nothing was wrong. She strutted in, bitchy as usual, trying to act like she was the queen of the world. I looked at her and said, "We need to talk, sit down." She smirked, trying to brush it off. "What now? You're just wasting my time with this damn paranoia." I pulled out my phone, turned it on, and showed her everything. The messages, the pictures, the planned meetup that she thought I'd never find out about. Her face turned white, but she still tried to deny it, flipping her stories. "It's not what it looks like," she insisted, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's just sex. Just sex, okay? I don't love him, I don't love Jason. It's meaningless, I swear, you're overreacting." I stared at her, feeling nothing but coldness. "It's not just sex, Emily. You're cheating on me during my father's funeral. How could you be so callous, so fucking selfish? You've been lying to my face for months, and I just found out you're sleeping with my brother. Do you even hear yourself?" She kept lying, trying to turn it around, saying I was insecure, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill, but I wasn't having it. I played the recordings, the texts, the photos. I wanted her to see everything I had collected. Her bitchy attitude cracked, and for a moment she looked like she was about to break down. But she squared her shoulders and spat out, "Look, I don't give a damn what you think. This doesn't mean anything. I'm not leaving, and I don't care if you're mad." That was when I finally snapped. I told her I'd had enough, that I knew everything and I was done. I said, "You want to lie and deny, fine, but I'm not going to stay in a marriage where I'm just some fool. You're out of here. I want you gone by tonight." Her eyes flicked with anger and contempt, but she knew she was caught. She tried to argue, to turn it around, but I cut her off and told her to pack her shit and leave. The moment she walked out that door, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd exposed her finally. I'd shown her that I wasn't going to be played anymore. But beneath all that, there was this crushing sadness I couldn't shake. I kept replaying everything, wondering how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see her true colors sooner. I had trusted her blindly, and that trust was now shattered. That night, I sat alone in the quiet of my house, feeling raw and broken. The betrayal wasn't just about the cheating. It was about the fact that I was blindsided during what should have been one of the worst days of my life, my father's funeral. I realized that I'd been nothing but a fool, giving her my heart, my trust, my everything, while she was out there laughing behind my back. I couldn't sleep, my mind racing. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without consequences. The days that followed were a blur of pain, anger, and reflection. I stayed in my house, trying to process what had happened, trying to figure out how I was going to move forward. Honestly, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Every time I thought about Emily smiling at me during the funeral, knowing she was cheating behind my back, it made my stomach turn. How could she be so cold, so heartless? And Jason, I kept replaying how he'd played right into her hands, how they betrayed me in the worst possible way. Part of me wanted to confront him, to tear him apart. But I also knew that wouldn't really fix anything. Jason was just as guilty in my eyes, another piece of the puzzle that shattered my trust forever. I realized I couldn't undo what was done, but I could choose my next steps carefully. I had to decide whether to fight for the marriage or just cut my losses and walk away. Honestly, my pride was battered, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone who lied to me that way. I sat down one night and made a decision. I was going to leave, not just for now, but for good. I had to get away from the toxicity, from the woman I loved who turned out to be a complete stranger. I started packing my things slowly, quietly. I didn't want her to know I was planning anything until I was ready. I also contacted a lawyer, just to understand my rights and what I needed to do to protect myself financially and emotionally. I never imagined I'd be in this situation, but here I was. That weekend I left. I told Emily I was going to stay with a friend, but I already had a place lined up. There was no way I could stay under the same roof after everything I'd uncovered. Watching her reaction was cold comfort. It was a mixture of anger and smugness, like she thought she was winning. But I knew better. I knew that her smile, her lies, her betrayal, they all came with a cost. Living alone was difficult at first. The silence was deafening, and memories kept flooding back. I kept asking myself where I went wrong, how I trusted her so blindly, how I didn't see the signs. But I also started to feel a sense of relief. No more pretending, no more hiding the truth. I was done being the fool. I had everything I needed to move on: proof, clarity, and a resolve that I wasn't going to let her or anyone else ruin me. I learned a hard lesson about trust, about love, and about how some people just aren't worth your time or energy. In the end, I realized I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. The pain was sharp, but so was the clarity. I learned that betrayal can destroy you if you let it, but it also can make you stronger if you choose to stand back up. Now, I look back at that chapter of my life and see it as a brutal lesson, one that taught me to trust myself more and to be more cautious with who I let into my world. If I could give advice to anyone in my shoes, it'd be this: don't ignore the signs, don't be afraid to confront the truth, and never let anyone make a fool out of you. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself. Looking back now, I realize that the hardest part wasn't just the betrayal itself, but how much I let it define me for a while. I was angry, hurt, humiliated, every emotion you could imagine crashing inside me. For weeks, I questioned everything I believed about love and trust. But gradually, I started to rebuild piece by piece, learning to trust myself again. The thing is, betrayal like that changes you, but it also reveals who you really are: stronger, smarter, more cautious. One thing I've learned is that people aren't always what they seem. Emily was good at hiding her true nature, and Jason was no different. Another person I thought I knew turned out to be just as fake. I don't blame myself for trusting them. I blame myself for not seeing the signs sooner. But I also learned that I am capable of surviving the worst. Betrayal can break you if you let it, but it can also make you see the world more clearly. Now I focus on myself. I go to therapy, I reconnect with friends I'd pushed aside, and I work on my career. I don't let what happened define me, but I do let it teach me. Trust is precious and fragile, something I won't give away lightly anymore. I've become more guarded, more aware of what's real and what's not. Still, I believe in love, even if I'm more careful with it now. If I could give anyone advice from my experience, it's this: don't ignore the signs, but don't beat yourself up if you miss them either. Sometimes people hide who they really are so well that you only see it when it's too late. Protect yourself, listen to your gut, and never settle for less than honesty and respect. And when it's time to walk away, do it with your head held high. You deserve someone who genuinely cares, who values you, and who wouldn't dare betray you the way Emily betrayed me. I'm not perfect, and I still have scars. But I'm alive, I'm healing, and I'm stronger for having survived this. Life's too short to be stuck in the shadows of someone else's lies. I may have been a fool once, but I refuse to be one again. I'll take the lessons I've learned and move forward, better, wiser, and more prepared for whatever comes next. And that, for me, is the final lesson. Sometimes, you have to lose everything to find out who you really are.